Buddy Holly, at only 22 years old, with a professional recording career that lasted just 3 years, he had already staked his claim as one of the most important musicians of the early rock era, before sadly being taken from us a million times too soon in the plane crash that also took the lives of Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. While in recent years I don't put too much stock in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's choices, they got it right the first year when Buddy Holly was one of the first 10 inductees. Buddy Holly and the Crickets were one of the first self-contained rock bands. They wrote most of their own songs, with each member contributing in some way to the overall sound when it came to recording. They toured along with the greats, like Jerry Lee Lewis and Eddie Cochran, holding their own with the best of the best. In this episode of Music Corner, we're taking a look at Buddy Holly's debut album, The Chirping Crickets, from 1957. I remember being in a punk band as a teenager in the late 90s. The other guys were all about Blink-182 or Limp Bizkit. For me, my heroes were Buddy Holly, Elvis, and Jerry Lee Lewis. But I'd at least attempt to participate in music discussions. One question that would arise was, what's your favorite album? If you're a fan of 50s rock, it's a hard question, as the 50s was all about singles, with the LP being a way for record labels to compile all the big hits at the end of the year, slap on a few songs to fill out the album, and release it. The idea of an album as art really didn't come into being until the 60s. Given the majority of what I listened to came from best of albums, I never really had an answer. Thinking about it now, one album from the 1950s that I think is worthy of a spot on my favorite album of all time list would be 1957's The Chirping Crickets, an album consisting of 12 songs, of which most are now considered rock and roll classics. With That'll Be the Day skyrocketing up the charts, the Crickets were completely unaware that their label wanted to release a full album and were on tour with Alan Freed. As is the story with a lot of those early rock LPs, this would be a rush release to capitalize on a hit single. The Crickets were in New York City to appear with Alan Freed at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, when head of their label, Bob Thiele, sent a photographer out to get a shot for the album cover. The photographer found the guys at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater and had them head up to the roof for the photo shoot. As young guys do, drummer Jerry Allison and rhythm guitarist Nicky Sullivan got into a fight spraying each other with water, resulting in Jerry putting Nicky in a headlock and Nicky punching him right in the eye before the photo shoot. Jerry promised to kick his ass later, but never did. The resulting black eye was touched up, but its swollen appearance would forever be immortalized. Produced by Norman Petty and released on November 27, 1957, the album failed to chart in the States, but climbed to number 5 in the UK. Despite not being an immediate success, the Chirping Crickets can now be found on Best Albums of All Time lists, and that's why I wanted to look behind the songs themselves. So, let's see what Buddy Holly and the Crickets have in store for us with The Chirping Crickets. Track 1, Oh Boy.
All of my love, all of my kissing, you don't know what you've been missing, oh boy.
Oh Boy was written by Sonny West. Like Buddy, Sonny was from Lubbock, Texas, and cut a single, Rockola Ruby, back with Sweet Rockin' Baby at Norman Petty's studio in Clovis, New Mexico, where Buddy recorded. The record had a limited release of 700 copies, and by February of 1957, he was back in the studio again to record a new song he had written called All My Love, Oh Boy. Sonny's version features slightly different lyrics and more instrumentation than Buddy's, including a trumpet and even some boogie-woogie piano played by Glenn D. Harden, who went on to play for the Crickets after Buddy's death and was part of Elvis's group in the 70s.
All my love, all my kissing, you're gonna see what you've been missing, oh boy.
It's a bit less polished than Buddy's version and would stay unreleased until 2002. Buddy was made aware of this song by his producer Norman Petty and cut the song between June 29th and July 1st, 1957. Buddy took the 12-bar blues arrangement of the song and plays in a more stripped-down, straightforward way, with Norman Petty going back later and dubbing the backing vocal group The Picks onto the track. Buddy liked Oh Boy so much that he made it one of 2 songs he planned to perform on his second appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. Lyrically speaking, it's about a guy declaring he's going to give his girl all his love tonight. As innocent as the song is, the idea didn't sit well with Ed Sullivan's people, who didn't want Buddy performing it on the show. Tensions between Buddy and Ed were already hot. The Crickets were called to the stage for a rehearsal, and Joe B. and Jerry Allison were nowhere to be found. When Buddy walked out alone, Sullivan asked where the other guys were. When Buddy said he didn't know where they went, Ed responded, "Well, I guess the Crickets are not too excited to be on the Ed Sullivan Show." To which Buddy replied, "I hope they're damn more excited than I am." Buddy won the argument and performed Oh Boy, but not without Ed making it known he wasn't happy. Ed cut their scheduled second song from the show, purposely introduced them as Buddy Holland and the Crickets,
And now, Oh Boy with Buddy Holland and his Crickets.
and even cut the line feed on Buddy's guitar, which is why you see Buddy fooling with the knobs. I like to think Buddy's howl before taking the solo was in response to Ed thinking the song was too wild. The appearance was a success, though, and when Sullivan's people asked him to come back for a third appearance, Buddy told them they didn't have enough money for that. According to Jerry Allison, Buddy was a bit more harsh than that. Oh Boy spent 20 weeks on the top 40 charts in the US, reaching number 10, while reaching number 13 in the UK. Sonny West would go on to write Rave On, which Buddy would cover on his second album. Track 2, Not Fade Away.
I'm gonna tell you how it's gonna be.
Buddy wrote Not Fade Away with the help from his best friend, drummer, and frequent songwriting partner, Jerry Allison. The song was recorded on May 27, 1957. It's not surprising the song was partly written by a drummer, as it's one of the most rhythmically interesting songs in Buddy's catalog. The song features a slightly modified version of the Bo Diddley beat, with Jerry Allison keeping the rhythm on a cardboard box, an idea he got from Party Doll by Buddy Knox and the Rhythm Orchids. In an early example of overdubbing, Buddy, along with the other Crickets, provided his own backup vocals on the track. A few years later, the Rolling Stones would make Not Fade Away one of their first hits, reaching number 48 on the US charts. Track 3, You've Got Love.
Love, sweet love, you got love, genuine love.
You've Got Love was written by Roy Orbison and Peanuts Wilson, best known for his track Cast Iron Arm. Roy Orbison was still at Sun Records at the time, and Peanuts Wilson was playing guitar in his backing group, the Teen Kings. Buddy was the first to record You've Got Love, but Wilson did his own version as the flip side of Cast Iron Arm. Wilson's version is slower than Buddy's and lacks the enthusiasm Buddy showed in both his vocal and lead guitar break. In 1957, Buddy Holly and the Crickets joined the Show Stars tour. There was a 5-day layoff in the middle of the tour for all of the white performers who weren't allowed to appear on the same bill as the black performers when the tour hit segregated states. Norman Petty had a gig in Oklahoma City, which just happened to be where the white performers rejoined the tour. With Brunswick wanting to release an LP and needing a couple more songs from the Crickets to finish the record, Petty agreed to meet the group at the Officers Club at Tinker Air Force Base with portable recording equipment. By the early morning of September 30th, 1957, the Crickets had recorded You've Got Love and 3 other songs. With a re-release of the song, You've Got Love spent 6 weeks on the UK charts, reaching number 40 in May of 1964. Track 4, Maybe Baby.
Maybe, baby, I'll have you. Maybe, baby, you'll be true.
Buddy's mother wholeheartedly supported her son's career, and would sometimes even write lyrics for him. But Buddy would find the lyrics a little bit too serious and wasn't able to use them. That is until she brought him a few lines that became Maybe Baby. Buddy loved it and finished the lyrics, but his mother told him to promise not to put her name on it. Maybe Baby was originally recorded on March 1st, 1957 at Norman Petty's studio in Clovis. The result is a lackluster, slower version that lacks the drive of the hit version.
Maybe, baby, I'll have you. Maybe, baby, you'll be true.
They reworked the song a bit, with Jerry Allison deciding to give it a stronger beat based on the drum part for Little Richard's Lucille, and recorded this new version at the Tinker Air Force Base session. Maybe Baby spent 14 weeks on the top 40 charts in the US, reaching number 17, while reaching number 4 in the UK. Track 5, It's Too Late.
It's too late, she's gone. baby's gone.
As a teenager, Buddy Holly was already absorbing the influence of country and western music coming out of his radio, from the Big D Jamboree, the Louisiana Hayride, and the Grand Ole Opry. But sometimes, late at night, he was able to get other stations. When local transmissions ended late at night, he'd be able to pick up stations playing rhythm and blues records. Even before Elvis came through Lubbock in 1955, Buddy was already hooked on this new sound. One of the artists played on these stations was Chuck Willis on Atlantic Records. Willis was a singer-songwriter and master showman who wore a turban when he performed and was known as the Sheik of Shake. In songwriting, he was a perfectionist, never going into the studio until a song was fully worked out. It's Too Late took him a week to write. His hard work paid off, and It's Too Late reached number 3 on the R&B chart in 1956 and was featured on his 1958 album, King of the Stroll. It's Too Late is a slow rhythm and blues reminiscent of Ray Charles.
It's too late, she's gone. It's too late, my baby's gone.
With a smaller band than Chuck Willis's group, the 12/8 rhythm is more prominent in the mix on Buddy's version, with Buddy playing an acoustic guitar and Jerry Allison riding the cymbal. It's hard to say which version I prefer, as they both have elements I like. Chuck Willis's version features female backup singers, which complements the song more than the picks do on Buddy Holly's version. Buddy's version has a stronger rhythm, though. I also like Norman Petty's decision to switch on the echo chamber microphone as Buddy hits the bridge.
She's gone, she's gone, yeah, she's gone, yeah, she's gone.
Buddy's family owned a tile company and laid tile in the attic of a building on the same lot as the studio. A mic would run from the studio into the room, capturing the live sound reverberating around the room. Different artists used various ways to achieve this. In fact, Dwayne Eddy utilized a water tank. It's Too Late is a song that kind of became a standard among rockabilly and rhythm and blues artists, with versions from everyone from Roy Orbison and Charlie Rich to Ruth Brown and Otis Redding. Track 6, Tell Me How.
Tell me how to keep your love. You know how I need your love.
Tell Me How was recorded between October 12th and October 14th, 1957. Buddy wrote Tell Me How with Jerry Allison. Lyrically, I suspect it's one of many songs Buddy wrote in response to the recent breakup with his longtime girlfriend, Echo McGuire, who broke things off when she met another guy at college. Don't you know that I love you? Let me show why I'm true blue. When I know our love is true, don't keep your love from me, suggests Buddy was blindsided by the breakup. Musically, Buddy's Fender Strat showcases its jangly sound over a driving beat from Jerry Allison. The solo is one of Buddy's most interesting, focusing primarily on the lower bass notes, and the backup vocals add to the bright, happy sound of the song as well. It's one of the songs I point as a showcase of Buddy's influence on the future of music. The rhythmic, clean tone, the melodies, and overall texture can be heard in a few years' time as part of the Mersey beat. Buddy's 1958 British tour certainly helped as well. Even a young Mick Jagger was in the audience for one of the London shows. Think of Buddy as a Texan who was the father of the British invasion. Track 7, That'll Be the Day.
Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day.
One night in June of 1956, Buddy went to catch the new John Wayne flick, The Searchers, with his brother Larry, Sonny Curtis, and Jerry Allison. Throughout the film, when a character would make a statement that John Wayne found unlikely, he'd say,
"You want to quit, Ethan? That'll be the day."
Later at Jerry Allison's house, Buddy suggested they write a song. Jerry jokingly dropped into his best John Wayne, saying, "That'll be the day," and the song was written that night. At the time, Buddy was still under contract with Decca Records and recorded the track on July 22nd, 1956 at Bradley Studios in Nashville with a group called the Three Tunes. Decca, who didn't really have much respect for Buddy as an artist and did little to promote him, refused to release the record.
That'll be the day when you say goodbye. That'll be the day.
7 months later, in late February 1957, Buddy recorded the hit version of the song at Norman Petty's studio. Decca's contract with Buddy forbid him to re-record any material he did for them for 5 years, even if they didn't release it. Buddy at one point even tried calling Decca to ask for permission to re-record his song, but they refused. Buddy and Jerry Allison were convinced That'll Be the Day was a hit, and came up with the idea to have a band name to disguise who was on the new record. Insect names were popular for rhythm and blues groups at the time, and Jerry got out an encyclopedia, flipped to the bug section, and started calling out names. They briefly considered the Beatles, but Jerry said that's just a bug you step on. They came across the Crickets and all had a good laugh when they read that crickets made happy music by rubbing their legs together. That'll Be the Day was recorded live in the studio with no overdubs and featured the usual Cricket lineup with the exception of Joe B. Malden, who had yet to join the group. Larry Wellborn played the bass on that session as he had Buddy's earlier country group, Buddy and Bob. The difference between the two versions is night and day. The Nashville version just sounds off. It's slightly slower, Buddy's vocals are a bit strained, and the guitar just doesn't grab you like the hit version. The second version, on the other hand, despite being thought of as no more than a demo to see if they like the group's sound, has every element coming together to make a great record. The producer of the Nashville version, Owen Bradley, remarked at the time that it was the worst song he'd ever heard. When the re-recorded version became a hit, that same producer had a song in the charts called White Silver Sands that only went to number 100 on the charts. Jerry Allison said he took a special kind of enjoyment out of that. That'll Be the Day spent 22 weeks on the top 40 charts in the US, reaching number 3, while reaching number 1 in the UK. Track 8, I'm Looking for Someone to Love.
Well, I'm looking for someone to love. I'm looking for someone to love.
I'm Looking for Someone to Love was recorded at the same session as the hit version of That'll Be the Day. Buddy and Jerry Allison had assisted fellow Lubbock musician Gary Tollett in recording a demo because his cousin, who worked for Roulette Records, wanted to see if she could get him a recording contract. Among others recorded were Go Boy Go. The demo led to a contract on Gone Records, who released one single for Gary under the name Gary Dale. As a way of saying thank you, Gary and his wife agreed to sing backup on Buddy's session in February. They held a number of practices before the session, mostly perfecting That'll Be the Day. And it was on the final night of practice that Buddy wrote I'm Looking for Someone to Love. The song is 12-bar blues in form, but bright and happy in style. Gary, his wife, and Cricket Nikki Sullivan's backup vocals are simple and mesh perfectly with Buddy and the song as a whole. The lyrics are another window into how Buddy was feeling after his breakup with Echo McGuire. In this case, it's acceptance, as he was becoming popular around Lubbock and was seeing a lot of girls, or playing the field, as the song goes. The final verse, drunk man, streetcar, foot slip, there you are, is a brilliant nonsense phrase that doesn't actually mean anything to the rest of the song. It was actually a phrase that Buddy's mother liked to say, and Buddy put it into the song. A number of artists have covered I'm Looking for Someone to Love, one of my favorites being the Stray Cats on the 1986 album, Rock Therapy. Track 9, An Empty Cup and a Broken Date.
One lonely night. At this drive-in.
Like You've Got Love, An Empty Cup and a Broken Date is another song written by Roy Orbison that was recorded by Buddy at that September 1957 session at Tinker Air Force Base. An Empty Cup and a Broken Date isn't one of Buddy's better-known songs, but it's a nice track with a slow, moderate country feel. Roy's version is a little less country-sounding and more typical of his later style with soaring vocals and all.
One lonely night at this drive-in.
Lyrically, the dramatic balladeer style works better than Buddy's country feel, as they sound more like something you'd hear in a teenage lament about a guy getting stood up at the drive-in. Joe B's bass and Jerry Allison's drums drive the song, and Buddy's guitar tone is beautiful. Like Buddy, Roy Orbison was from Texas, and by 1955 was playing the region with his group, the Teen Kings. In March of 1956, they traveled the 200 miles to Clovis, New Mexico to record at Norman Petty's studio. Buddy had held his first session there just that February. Roy cut the first version of Ooby Dooby with Norman Petty. Norman was seeing a lot of Texas musicians coming through his studio at the time, including Roy, Buddy Knox, and of course Buddy Holly. Buddy Knox had a theory that Norman Petty kept such an iron grip on Buddy Holly because he let both Knox and Orbison slip through his fingers. Johnny Cash came through Texas around this period and met Roy and told him he should call up Sun Records. Owner of Sun Records, Sam Phillips, wasn't too happy when Roy called, saying, "You tell Johnny Cash he doesn't run my company." Roy eventually won him over and re-recorded Ooby Dooby for a release on the Sun label, leaving for greener pastures in 1958. Track 10, Send Me Some Lovin'.
Send me some loving. Send it, I pray.
Buddy recorded Send Me Some Lovin' on July 12, 1957. It was originally recorded by Little Richard on October 16, 1956 at J&M Music Shop in New Orleans for Specialty Records, and was written by John S. Marascalco and Leo Price. Little Richard's voice and arrangement works better on the song than with Buddy. The New Orleans-style horn section helps the song a lot more than the backing vocal group The Picks on Buddy's version.
Send me some loving. Send it, I pray.
That said, it is interesting to note the great respect Buddy shows to Little Richard in his vocal, especially picking up on Richard's cadence and vocal idiosyncrasies. Buddy's brother Larry was a huge fan of Little Richard and Chuck Wills, and suggested this song and Wills' It's Too Late to Buddy. Buddy recorded both at the same session. Buddy himself was a fan of Little Richard's, and not only toured with him, but covered Rip It Up, Ready Teddy, and Slipping and Sliding, Peepin' and Hidin' as well. Track 11, Last Night.
Last night, as I watched the stars from my window.
Last Night was recorded on March 1st, 1957, and is a 50s style ballad that Joe B. Malden had written when he was still in his group The Four Teens. It's a pretty ballad with a 12/8 rhythm, with Buddy on acoustic guitar, accented by a clean electric guitar. Joe B. was just 16 years old when he joined the Crickets. While still playing with the Four Teens, Buddy came to Joe B. saying he needed a bass player for a gig in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And on the way back to Lubbock, Buddy asked him to join the Crickets. Buddy had already recorded That'll Be the Day at that point, and told Joe B. they had just recorded this new song and it was going to be a hit. Joe B. was skeptical of this and asked how long it would take. Buddy simply replied, "How long did it take Elvis?" Track 12, Rock Me My Baby.
Well, rock a like a hickory dickory dock, rock a mama, baby.
Rock Me My Baby is another track from the Tinker Air Force Base session and is something of a novelty track based on the nursery rhyme Hickory Dickory Dock. Despite having rather silly lyrics, this is a solid rockabilly song. The opening riff has that Memphis rockabilly sound heard on something like Wade and Dick's Bop Bop Baby. But also features some playing that's unmistakably Buddy Holly. With a slow verse and fast energetic chorus, along with phenomenal guitar playing throughout, it's easy to look past lyrics like "Rock Like Hickory Dickory Dock." The song came to Buddy from songwriter Shorty Long. Shorty is an interesting figure in country and rockabilly music. He played multiple instruments, was classically trained on the violin in Rome, and through his connections as a musician and songwriter, befriended Frank Lozier of Guys and Dolls fame, resulting in work on the Broadway stage production of The Most Happy Fella. One of the instruments he was proficient in was the piano, and when rock and roll came into being, Shorty was often called on to play on various recording sessions. Most notably, it's Shorty's boogie woogie piano we hear on early Elvis RCA rockabilly cuts like Lawdy Miss Claudie, One-Sided Love Affair, I'm Gonna Sit Right Down and Cry Over You, and Don't Be Cruel. RCA came calling on Shorty's piano skills again for a couple of Janis Martin sessions, My Boy Elvis and Barefoot Baby. As a songwriter, Shorty worked frequently with Bix Reichner, who wrote Teenage Prayer for Gloria Mann, I Need Your Love Tonight for Elvis, and Papa Loves Mambo for Perry Como. In the case of Rock Me My Baby, Shorty wrote it with Bix, who opted to credit his wife, Susan Heather, in order to hide his identity to get around contractual issues. Nicky Sullivan left the Crickets after the 1957 tour was over. The band continued on as a trio until Buddy himself left in December of 1958. Buddy wanted to put down roots in New York City, where the business and publishing offices were, while Jerry and Joe B wanted to stay in Lubbock. Buddy was already experimenting with new sounds, recording with a full orchestra on songs like Raining in My Heart, It Doesn't Matter Anymore, Moon Dreams, and True Love Ways, and was recording demos in his New York apartment for new songs when he accepted a tour of the Midwest for some much-needed cash. With Dion and the Belmonts, Frankie Sardo, Richie Valens, Buddy of course, and the Bopper, the winter dance party was a disaster for all involved. Broken heating systems on the bus, the tour drummer hospitalized with frostbite, the complete lack of downtime to perform simple tasks like getting laundry done proved to be too much for Buddy. After a show at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, Buddy chartered a flight to the next stop on the tour to beat the bus there and hopefully get some laundry done and rest up. Word got out, and the Big Bopper, who was fighting the flu, asked Buddy's bass player Waylon Jennings for a spot on the plane. Richie Valens flipped a coin with Buddy's guitarist Tommy Alsa for his spot on the plane. The small Beechcraft Bonanza plane carrying 21-year-old pilot Roger Peterson and the three performers took off from Dwyer Flying Service in Mason City, Iowa, and into legend. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Chirping Crickets. If you'd like to be kept up to date as to when I release a new video, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. And if you really want to be notified, hit that bell as well. I'm Brian, and I'll see you next time on Music Corner.